Hey Fae welcome back. So for today's video, I want to discuss a brand that I unfortunately have not had cause to talk about for some time, and that is the Magic Mixies Pixlings. Specifically, I want to give you my theory on why allegedly there aren't going to be any more of them. Now, this is just a theory. There's no confirmation or anything like that. We'll get into like communications with the company a little bit further in the video, but I do just want to say Moose Toys, who produces the Magic Mixies Pixlings, or produced the Magic Mixies Pixlings, has not made like an official statement saying like this is why these were canceled or even this was canceled. So all of this, all of the stuff that I'm talking about is just like alleged. It's just me theorizing. I don't know. I loved the Magic Mixies Pixlings while they were being made, and I'm sad that it seems as though they are not going to be made anymore. And I just wanted to do like a little talk about what I think was the downfall of what honestly seemed to me to be a pretty promising brand. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Like I said, it's all alleged. It's all just my own opinion. You're absolutely free to disagree with me, and I would love to hear if you have different theories. Drop them in the comments. Like, I'm nosy to know if you guys have different thoughts on what might have caused the Pixlings to sort of slide into obscurity there. And also, if you find yourself enjoying the video, if you could like, comment, subscribe, and hype, that is super duper helpful to me. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and get into it. First of all, we have to talk about establishing the fact that the Pixlings aren't continuing. Like, this whole video is sort of a moot point, right? If like the Pixlings are gonna come back in 3 months. I don't believe that is the case. I did reach out to Moose Toys in an attempt to like get firsthand information for you guys. It has been like 2.5, 3 weeks at this point, and I haven't heard anything back. I literally just sent an email and was like, hey, I'm a huge fan of the Pixlings. Like, we haven't heard anything about it in a while. Can you give us an update? And I have not heard anything. If somehow in the time between me sitting down to film this and when it goes up, that changes, if it's like within the editing window, I will put it in here if something has changed there, or I'll pin it in the comments if something changes. But thus far, I personally have not had any like confirmation or lack thereof from Moose Toys. So instead, let's go ahead and go to the internet, and more specifically Reddit, which is a site that I typically try to avoid, but it is helpful every once in a while. So if you just Google Magic Mixies Pixlings discontinued, you will see several Reddit posts pop up ranging in time. The one that I'm going to be reading from is from 183 days ago as of time of recording. There's another one that was like 3 months ago. So you can find several like this. I'm just going to read one email because they all are like basically the same, right? I'm also not using any usernames because even though this is like a public platform, so like the information is already public, like the person who posted this has already consented to that being on the internet. I just sometimes feel a little bit weird about using stuff like that in my videos, even though it's like technically fine. It's not hard to find. So if you want to find the original post, like I've literally told you exactly what to Google, you can find this, you can read it for yourself. But just for my comfort, I'm not going to be naming the username or putting like the screenshot of the email on screen. I'm just going to read it to you. But the poster said that they are a huge Pixlings fan and hadn't seen any real news or leaks from the brand in quite some time. So they emailed Moose Toys asking basically, hey, what's going on? And keep in mind, this was, again, as of time of filming, 183 days ago. So like, that's a good chunk of time ago. It's not like this was yesterday. This has clearly been a problem, or not a problem per se, but like this has been a question in people's minds for some time. So the response that they got back was, we love that you love Pixlings as much as we do. Little like heart emoji there. Right now, the current season is ready and waiting. I believe they're referring to like the current season of their releases. And while there's nothing new in the works at the moment, who knows what the future holds? We're always dreaming up fresh ideas, so keep an eye on our website. There might be a surprise around the corner. Thanks for being part of our journey. And like I said, there are several posts like this. Like, you can find other people who've posted emails, and it's all sort of the same thing. I was hoping to get one back, but like I said, I have not received an email back as of right now. But they're all very like corporate speak, right? Just saying, hey, yeah, like there's nothing coming out right now. Obviously, we know that. We haven't heard anything about the Pixlings for a minute at this point, and that's like in terms of official releases, but also leaks. Like, there aren't any leaks even floating around. So like, we kind of already know that there's nothing going on at the moment. They're playing it cagey, being like, oh, we could do this in the future. And I do understand sort of why from a company standpoint, like assuming that they still have like the copyrights and like the rights to all of this locked and loaded, they could do more in the future. But to me, it does just seem like something that isn't going to happen. I think brands like Bratz or Monster High that have this huge cultural impact definitely can take a hiatus and then come back. And we've seen that from other brands that have this huge cultural impact. But as much as I personally love the Magic Mixies Pixlings, and I know a lot of other people also did love them, they're not on Monster High level, okay? Like, I'm not gonna try to gas them up that much. I know that they're not on that level. And so I just don't think that they are necessarily a brand that it's reasonable to expect that they might take a hiatus and then come back. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just personally am not seeing it. I think that this is just, we're seeing these very, again, corporate speak emails basically being like, yeah, there's nothing coming out without outright saying it's not going to happen. So that is my take on it. If you disagree, that's obviously fine. What do I know? I don't work for Moose Toys. I haven't been contacted by them. Like, I don't personally know anything, but it just reads to me as being very, yeah, this isn't going to happen, but we can't say that for whatever reason. So, assuming that the Pixlings are discontinued, my theory about what killed the Pixlings, I think it was the Pixling Supremes. And to understand that, we have to like go back a little bit to sort of the beginning of the Magic Mixies Pixlings, because the controversy that I think sort of really came to a head with the Pixling Supremes and like the reason that those were so rough has been a thing from the beginning. So before there were the Magic Mixies Pixlings, there were just the regular old Magic Mixies. Those came out in, I believe, 2021. I want to say it was like later 21, because I feel like I remember seeing them be like a really huge thing for Christmas that year, but I could be wrong. But sometime in 2021, Moose Toys started making the Magic Mixies toys. So these were very, very similar to what the Pixlings would eventually become, where there was like some sort of reveal gimmick. I think they had several iterations, like some were plush reveals, some were more of like just little plastic figurine reveals. But the whole gimmick originally was supposed to be that you mix up this potion and then you magically get to reveal your Magic Mixies, which would be like a little creature. Like the original concept was not dolls, it was like little critters that would come out again, like sometimes a plush or sometimes more of a figure. And the play aspect and like the gimmick aspect was that you had to do the mixing to get your stuffed animal, like to get the toy. You couldn't just open up the package. I mean, you could, but like the point is that it's supposed to be like a fun unboxing process for kids to go through where they're like, have this cauldron and like you're making your magic potion and then you get a stuffed animal or something else at the end, which I do think is a fun concept. And again, if I recall correctly, I think that with the Magic Mixies, especially like the bigger toys, because I think they had smaller ones as well. I clearly wasn't paying as much attention to the Magic Mixies. Okay, the Pixlings is where we got the attention, or where they got my attention, I should say. But I think that they sold like refill packs of the like liquids and stuff that you could use for the reveal gimmick, so that it wasn't just a, hey, you bought this huge cauldron, because these were fairly expensive toys, right? Like they weren't $20 a pop, at least like the bigger ones. They were decently expensive. But I think you could buy like refill packs so that you could then do the gimmick over and over and over again, and like your kid or you, I don't judge, who cares? If you're happy, that's what matters. But they're marketed towards kids, so that's like the language that I'm going to end up using for a good portion of this. But that way you could do like the reveal sort of situation and keep making these potions. And so that way the big cauldron that you get wouldn't just end up being a hunk of plastic that just was there, right? Like it was a way to continue the play with the toy. Yes, you didn't get like a new stuffed animal every single time unless someone stuck one in there for you. But the whole point was like you get to have this fun reveal thing. Who doesn't love a little bit of magic and whimsy in their life, right? So you get to have the reveal, you get your toy, and then you can find ways to redo the reveal and like keep making the potions and keep engaging in play that way, which I do think again is a good idea. You can definitely argue on the price side of things. Like you can say that's too expensive, you can say it's fine. That's not like what we're here today for. Again, the Magic Mixies are like, I'm just explaining it so that we can get to the Pixlings. But that was the situation with them. I have to assume that the Magic Mixies did well, because otherwise why would they get an offshoot brand with the Pixlings? So I'm just going to say the Magic Mixies must have sold quite well, and we ended up getting the Magic Mixies Pixlings, where they entered into fashion doll territory as opposed to like the creature toys territory. That feels like such a weird way to put it, but like, I don't know, it's how we're putting it for today. So these were smaller dolls. That is a very, very key point for this video. These were not full-size dolls. I want to say they're like roughly the size of an LOL tween. Like if you compare them, I'm like checking. I think that's like roughly the same size. So instead of a typical sort of 12-ish inch 1/6 scale fashion doll, they're like about half the size of that. And a very important thing to note is that they did keep the reveal gimmick that was key to the Magic Mixies, but they also did change something, and that is that it really wasn't so much a thing that you could redo the reveal gimmick, and that will become extremely important as we continue talking. But just like to lay out the Pixlings, they came out with, I want to say it was just 3 dolls on the outset. And these were not just ordinary human dolls, of course not. That really wouldn't make sense with like the Magic Mixies and mixing potions to reveal the doll. No, they were all like mythical creatures. So we had like a fawn, a unicorn, a mermaid. Later on, we would get a fairy, a dragon, like all sorts of different really, really cool little critters. And personally, I think these dolls are beautiful, like genuinely just so unbelievably pretty. Their faces, especially, are just to die for. Like the style is so, so gorgeous to me. Obviously, that's subjective, but I know a lot of people, even people who don't buy the Pixlings for other reasons that we'll get into, other people also love the Pixlings. Like I do think that facially they had a very, very broad appeal, even though they did mostly have molded on tops. They usually had a like fabric bottom, but like a molded on top. We did get some deluxe dolls that had fully removable clothing, but for the most part, they did have a molded on top. Now, sorry, I feel like I'm like a little all over the place. Hopefully, I'm making enough sense to go back to the reveal gimmick. That was like essential to the being of the Magic Mixies. So it makes complete sense that they would go ahead and continue that on with the Magic Mixies Pixlings. So when you bought these dolls, you got a completely like blind potion bottle. It isn't like blind in the sense that you can't know what you're getting. If you ordered off of an Amazon listing, you would know which doll you were getting. And they did all have different symbols on the box. So, like, if you only wanted one of them, you could make sure that you got that one, or you could just buy it blind if you like wanted to do it that way. I know as adult collectors, most of us generally don't like the blind packaging because we can't make sure that the faces are good. I can understand that with a reveal gimmick, like where half of the point of the toy is supposed to be the play feature of using this potion, I do think that I can be a little bit more forgiving with them. Maybe I'm just biased because I think that these are insanely cute, but I don't really know. I do think it at least makes more sense, right? It's not just a blind box for the sake of being a blind box. Like it's not just basically gambling for children. There is like a element of play factor that's in there. But the way that these worked was basically you would like pour a bunch of components in, and then you would like twist the little knob and push it down, and wow, all the water disappears, or like all the water clears up, and then you can see the doll inside. And it's like a little illusion, right? Like obviously the doll's in there all along, but it's cute. It makes it look like magic. And I will say, I really did not think that I was going to care about the unboxing process when I got my first Pixlings. Like I was like, oh, I'll do it for the camera, and like we'll just do it this once because it's my first one, and then I'm probably never going to do it again if I buy more of these dolls because like I am not really here for it. But I was wrong. Okay, I did think it was quite fun. Like there was just something very whimsical and silly about making a little potion to reveal your doll. Not everybody felt that way, and that is completely fine. Like that's a subjective thing, but I did like it more than I expected to. Now I don't have like a Pixlings here. I have all of the ones that I want to own that they released. So like I wasn't going to buy one just to do another reveal on camera. Like I said, I have done one on camera before. I'll link a video up above. Other people have also done plenty of videos showing the reveal. So if you want to see what it's actually like, you can absolutely like go check that out. But that's basically the premise, was that there was a reveal. However, to my knowledge, it wasn't the same situation where like they were marketing it to reset these toys, right? It wasn't a thing where it's like, hey, here you can buy the extra packs and you can redo this, or even just like you can make stuff yourself. Like I'm sure many a Magic Mixies original toy got like some shampoo or something in it from kids making potions, because that's like a whole thing. Kids yearn for potion making. Magic Mixies just gave them like a outlet for it, right? But I'm sure sometimes things that were not Magic Mixies licensed ended up in those cauldrons, and like I don't know, that's fine as long as the kid's having fun. So I guess you could in theory do like something similar with the Pixlings, but it definitely wasn't intended in the same way that I think that was an aspect of the play of the Magic Mixies. Like the gimmick really did feel like a one time, hey, you're unboxing this, here's the reveal. The reveal's going to be fun, but then you're just left with this big hunk of plastic, like bigger than my mic. And that is the main reason why a lot of people didn't end up liking these dolls. As I said earlier, a lot of people who didn't buy them would love the dolls, would like the faces and everything, but wouldn't buy them because they didn't want to spend the money for this big hunk of plastic that then it's like, okay, what are you supposed to do with it? Like, throw it in the trash? That's sort of an environmental disaster. But then, I mean, you can DIY something with it for sure, but how many DIY ideas can you really come up with when it comes to all of these bottles? If you're buying multiples of the dolls, you can donate them, of course, which is great, but like it still might end up in a landfill, so not super duper. And also, they were just big. Like, there obviously is the environmental impact that I don't want to neglect to talk about, but also they were just really, really big hunks of plastic that took up so much space. And as doll collectors, space is like the number one thing I feel like we're fighting all the time, right? Like, we never have enough space for our dolls and our shelves and our displays and everything like that. So having these enormous bottles really wasn't helping things. It really wasn't a good selling point. And so I think that was the most contentious thing about the original Magic Mixies Pixlings, was just like, hey, maybe the doll is really cute, but you're getting a doll that's like this tall, and then you're getting a packaging that's this big, that like, what are you supposed to do with it? And so that was like the biggest reason that I ever saw people talk about why they didn't buy these. Like, very, very rarely did I hear someone say, I hate the Pixlings, they're ugly. Obviously, if you feel that way, that's fine. Funny video to click on if you hate the Pixlings, but like, that's fine, it doesn't matter. But it really was, for various reasons, that huge bottle that kind of was the problem. I also do think it's important to note that it was theorized that the bottle was a large part of why the dolls cost about 18 to 20-ish dollars in the US. I don't remember like the exact specific price. They were like just under 20, right? And a lot of people felt like that was the reason why the price was so high, because while that is a price that was comparable to other things, again, I think the LOL Tweens is a really solid comparison point just because they are similarly sized dolls and they were out like at the same time. The thing with the Pixlings is most of them did have molded on tops. You only had a couple deluxe ones that cost more that had fully removable clothing. They do have quite limited articulation. And so you're seeing that the doll itself is not on the same level as something at a comparable price level like the LOL Tweens. Like, the LOL Tweens, I believe, were a few dollars more expensive than the Pixlings, but you got like fully removable clothing that was heavily detailed, at least at first. We're talking tweens in the heyday, right? And you got, I think, stands with every single doll. Granted, you also got stands with the Pixlings, but like, they're definitely not as good. I'll say that. We'll just put it that way. And with the tweens, you also got articulation that is just not present for the Pixlings. So it is a reasonable conclusion, I think, to look at the two that, again, are quite comparable, at least in scale and somewhat in price, and say, oh, well, the Pixlings are almost as expensive as a tween, but they do seem to be missing a lot of these features. The excessive packaging has to be where that price is coming in. And I do think that that's a correct assessment. Again, I don't know for sure because I don't work there, but I think that it's reasonable to assume that the packaging was a part of the price being a little bit on the higher side for what you're getting at the time. Like, now, okay, this was like pre everything going kind of, not pre everything going kind of wild. I feel like there were two major events semi recently, right, that have severely impacted toy prices. One was obviously 2020 and the pandemic, and then tariffs and everything surrounding that. We're just going to put it that way to be nice because we want this to be an analytical video, not a rant video. But this was pre tariffs at least. So, at that point, 18 to $20 for what we were getting was like a little bit pricey for some people. So that was just another reason to dislike the packaging. And I do understand, like, I bought so many Pixlings because I really, really loved the dolls, and for me, it was worth it. But there was no point where I didn't understand why people weren't buying the dolls, right? Like, you have this sort of trifecta of awfulness when it comes to the packaging, where, I mean, at least a trifecta. You could probably come up with more reasons, where it's making the doll a little bit more expensive, it's not super environmentally sound, and it takes up so much space. And then if you want to add a fourth one, just like right off the top of my head, ruining my trifecta comment, you also have the fact of like, while I found myself surprisingly enjoying doing the unboxing process, a lot of adult collectors didn't. And honestly, there's probably some kids that didn't either, that just wanted to get the doll. And you can absolutely get to the doll without doing the whole unboxing gimmick, but it is just one of those things where it's like an extra barrier, if that makes sense. So Pixlings, while I personally was completely besotted by them, just head over heels in love with these little gremlins, they were not for everyone. That being said, they definitely found success. They continued to produce dolls for quite some time. Let me double check when the last ones came out. Okay, so I did some looking, and I should have known I wouldn't find like an official date because they haven't, again, officially been discontinued. And also, it's really hard to pin down a date of when the last release actually was, just because different retailers get these dolls at different times. And like, even across America, you'll see things in California or like New York at different times, complete opposite ends of the country, not to mention the fact that international distribution is going to vary. So I can't pin down an exact date of their last release, but they definitely had several releases, both of like the normal dolls and also some slightly more deluxe or like just special edition type dolls. The first one they did Winter, who was a bunny, and she came with like fully clothing. I can't believe I just said that. Fully cloth clothing. There we go. They also did Angelica, the angel, one of my personal favorites. I love that doll so much. There was a random Unia, the unicorn release that had like a special dress. I don't even know what was going on with that one. Like I saw a few pictures of her and then just never really felt like I saw anything about her again. And even when you look up stock photos of her, they're like weirdly low quality. And then they did another Unia that came with a pegacorn, I believe is the term that they dubbed. So it's like a little horse slash dragon esque creature for her to ride. Like the Pixlings were popping off, despite the controversy, I guess we'll say, despite the continued critique of the packaging, which never did change really. They did change like the top of the bottle, and they changed a little bit of the contents, but like the bottle aspect and the blind aspect outside of the special editions you knew what you were getting, those, that never changed. Like that was always part of the Pixlings, and they definitely were successful despite that. So enter our nemesis for today's video, the thing that I personally think killed the Magic Mixies Pixlings, which was the Magic Mixies Pixlings Supremes. What a mouthful. So having gone from like little figurine, plush toys, that sort of thing, to smaller dolls, the next logical step for this brand that was clearly finding success was to move up to full fashion dolls. And when we got the announcement that this was going to be a thing, to tell you I was ecstatic. I don't really think gives you the full grasp of things. Like I love the Pixlings, despite all of the problems, just purely from an aesthetic standpoint. I think they're so gorgeous and unique and fun, and I love the fact that they are a part of my collection. So when we found out that they were going to be making the Pixlings but a little bit bigger in that typical like more 11 to 12 inch fashion doll range, I was over the moon. I was so excited. I could not wait for these suckers. They were called the Pixling Supremes, as I said, and I was like, great, let's do this. And I do think it was an excellent concept. You know what? I will give them their flowers for that. I think that it is a very natural progression, and I think that it could have been wildly successful. But they didn't only cling on to the surprise gimmick, they also made it so much worse. Just so infinitely much worse. So the Pixling Supremes released in like, I want to say July or August of 2024, somewhere in there is when they initially released. And even in stock photos, I'll pop some up here. Hopefully, I've been doing my job in editing and posting pictures as it's relevant. But even from the stock photos, I think you can really see that they're not the highest quality dolls. And that's not to say that the Pixlings were. Again, like earlier, I already critiqued them a little bit in terms of their quality compared to the LOL Tweens quality, but these look rough, even in the stock photos, which is not a good sign because the entire point of stock photos is to try to make you want the doll. Like the stock photos are ideally the best photos you can possibly get of the doll to showcase all the angles and all the details and everything so that you think that it's a worthwhile purchase. So when the stock photos look like shit, that's a bad sign, generally speaking. There are some dolls that just like don't photograph well, and so that's sort of a separate thing. But generally speaking, it's not a great sign if the stock photos look really bad, right? And the other thing that you will see in the stock photos is the massive, massive container that these things come in. It's not even like they just scaled up the potion bottle and it needed to be bigger to fit the bigger doll. Like I think that already would have been an issue. This was huge. This thing was like the size of a large computer. It was enormous. I did buy one eventually on sale because we're gonna get to the price. We're gonna get to the price. It has been brutal. But I did buy one on a sale at one point and I attempted to film an unboxing. And that I think was actually the first time that I ever sat down and started an unboxing and was unable to finish it because it was so terrible. The gimmick for the Supremes was different than the potion making, which I also think they went in the wrong direction with that. Like, clearly, the potion making thing, while it had its controversies, and I don't disagree with the controversies, it obviously was landing with somebody, right? Like, either the dolls were landing right or the potion gimmick was working for some people. And at the very least, I think the potion gimmick was better than what they ended up coming with, or what they ended up coming up with. Sorry. This happens to me when I get like really heated. My words start to just kind of get away from me. I'll try to rein it in. No, they went with a magic mirror route for this one. So you needed batteries for it, first of all, which like I think you did for some of the other earlier Magic Mixies toys, but you never did for the Pixlings. And I do think that that's like, you're just adding something on, right? Because it's just like, if you don't already have batteries, now you have to buy batteries to put in this thing. And is that like small? Are there other uses for batteries? So it's not like you're only buying batteries for this, potentially. But also, it is an additional annoyance, you might say. Like, at the very least, it's an additional annoyance, a small additional cost. It's just sort of a lot. And there was like this whole thing where like there was a faux mirror on there. It lit up with like a little screen, and this horrific moon face would talk to you and tell you what to do, tell you the next steps to unbox your Magic Mixies Pixlings Supreme. What a long name, also. And I just found it wasn't fun. It wasn't charming in the same way that the potion bottles were to me. Again, like you can definitely argue that. But for me, it was just like honestly a very grating experience. Like it wasn't fun. Again, I literally didn't post the video. Like I was having such a bad time that I could not salvage the footage of that. It was so bad. At one point, it also explodes confetti everywhere at you, which I hadn't watched reviews before I got it, so I didn't know that. So that was fun to have to clean up, which I also thought was interesting because that's something that Not Enough Surprise used to do, like way early on in Not Enough Surprise. And I thought like generally companies had moved away from that because people didn't love that about Not Enough Surprise because it is just a huge, huge mess. And it honestly like can also end up being somewhat of like a hazard because if you have confetti throwing everywhere, especially if you're not necessarily expecting it. Like if you are a parent who's just buying this for your kid, you might not realize the confetti is going to fly everywhere when you sit down with your kid to open this up, right? Like unless you are deeply, deeply in the know, or like if you are thoroughly reading the instructions. Because I'll admit, okay, it said it in the instructions. I just didn't read that far because I wanted it to be fun and I wanted it to be a surprise. Point is I do think you can make the argument that like that shit's gonna get everywhere, and if you have a infant or a pet or something, they might like lick up some of the remnants. I don't know. That's sort of a side tangent. I just don't think that it was like a great concept, and it was something that I thought had been left in the past, but they brought it back for inexplicable reasons. And then the doll would pop out. And that was kind of it. They did say like, "Oh, you can do other things with the magic mirror, like it can like interact with you to some degree and like it can be this interactive toy." I just don't see it. I personally found the mirror very unsettling. It was extremely loud. Again, I hated the confetti aspect. Like all of that was bad. And then we got to the actual doll. And as I said, they look cheap in the stock photos. They feel cheap. They feel horrific, to be nice. Granted, they do have a little bit more articulation than the Pixlings, so like that's an upside, but the fabric is straight up paper, at least on the one that I got. Maybe there's another version that's better, but the one that I got, it is like so painfully papery. And the doll itself too, like if you pick up like a Rainbow High doll or a G3 Monster High doll or even like Bratz dolls to some degree, like they feel sturdy. Like you feel like you can play with it and wave it around and like it's gonna be fine, right? Like you're not about to break this. This doll, when I first grabbed it, it was like, oh, this thing is there's nothing here. Like it is so insubstantial. My battery just gave out on my camera. So I don't actually know how much footage is going to stay on there of me complaining about the quality of the doll. So just to keep it short, it very much felt like a dollar store doll. And that's not me trying to insult dollar store dolls. I am a firm believer that those dolls, like budget dolls in general, have a time and place. I think that everyone, regardless of your income level, should have some like access to dolls if you want to have them. Like, I think we all deserve a little bit of joy in our life. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, you're poor, you only get necessities. No, that. I think everyone deserves some sort of joy. And so, like, if that means that you're going to pick up a $5 doll and that's going to make you happy, I think that that $5 doll needs to exist for that purpose. But I also think that it's fair and normal to say that like a $5 doll is not going to have the same level of quality as a $25 doll. And that's just how it is. And that's also totally fine. But these felt like $5 like dollar store dolls. The problem was the original price of the Magic Mixies Pixling Supremes was 60 US dollars. 60. I'm so eternally grateful that I didn't pay that much. I am still mad. I don't even know how much I paid at this point. It's been a hot minute. But like however much I paid was still too much for these dolls. It was bad. And this really more than ever exemplified the fact that you were not paying for the doll, but you were paying for the gimmick. As I said, that had already been a problem with the Pixlings, but now the Pixling Supremes just made it so much worse. I feel like before, the price versus like what you got for the Pixlings, it was a little different. You know, like you could tell, okay, the packaging is really amping up the price a smidge here. This isn't like quite what I want to pay for a doll of this quality, but like it wasn't necessarily a horrific gap. Like there was definitely a gap, but it wasn't like an insurmountable one, I guess you might say. Even though a lot of people, myself included, were hoping that the Pixlings would end up changing their packaging so that it could be more on a level playing ground and also just less wasteful and just have less of the problems that the packaging had. It wasn't insurmountable. People still liked them and people still wanted them to do better in the future. Like they still would critique the brand, but they liked it enough to be like, hey, if you change it and we can make it more equitable, we will like this. We want this. But instead, what happened was the Pixling Supremes took that gap and just ratcheted it up to 100. Like so much, like so much of the budget had to go into the enormous chunk of relatively useless plastic that was the packaging and the programming for like the screen and everything that's in there. And I just think that it was a terrible, terrible mistake to make. Not putting the quality in the actual product, not maintaining any like real sense of replayability like the original Magic Mixies had, and then amping up the price that far to, you know, recoup what it costs to make this ridiculous unnecessary packaging. It just wasn't, it was a mess on all fronts. That's really the best way that I can put it. And I personally, again, theorize that that is what killed the brand because these dolls did not sell well. And I completely understand why. I mean, like I said, I waited for a sale. Most adult collectors that I know who bought some of these waited for a sale because why would you want to spend $60 on that, especially if you are just a collector, if you're just in it for the doll? You don't want all the shit that comes with it, like all the packaging that comes with it. Why on earth would you spend $60 for a doll that, like, very clearly, even from the stock photos, is not worth $60, knowing that then you just have this big hunk of thing that you have to deal with? Like, it's not something that adult collectors wanted to buy. And then also when you like bring in kids into it, because again, Magic Mixies were definitely originally like aimed mostly at kids. Anyone of any age can enjoy anything that's like safe for them, obviously. So adults can play with their toys, adults can like the Magic Mixies, but they definitely were aimed at kids, as most toys, generally speaking, are. What parent is going to spend $60 on a doll that they can't see? Because this was also blind packaging in the sense that you couldn't see the doll itself. They did have like a picture of the doll that you were going to get on the front of the box, but you couldn't see the doll. You couldn't know that it looked good. You couldn't see any of the quality. And I just think that most parents, especially in today's economy, or like even the economy that these would have entered into in 2024, most parents aren't going to want to spend $60 on something like that. They just aren't. Like, that's just not, I think, a realistic thing to expect of parents or collectors alike. And so the dolls sat on shelves and just ended up going on sale after sale after sale. And I believe recently on maybe Amazon, they went down as low as $12 from 60. That's a bad sign. Like, it is a very bad sign when, I mean, if these came out in 2024, by the end of 2025, you still have stock and you're still so desperate to get rid of that stock that you're putting them down to $12 from $60. Like, yes, things go on clearance, but like they shouldn't have lingered that long. They should not have been able to get like that low down that like broadly. It just feels very clear that these were not the success that the company was hoping for. And in my head, it is a direct correlation to the fact that they now no longer have plans to continue the Pixlings. And for all intents and purposes, it seems to me that the Pixlings have been discontinued. And I can only assume it's because of this, because the little dolls were again doing well. The real only critique was like, if you're going to maintain like this level of quality, you need to bring the price down and you need to change the packaging. That was it. That was the problem with the Pixlings. Again, yes, some people like just don't like the look, but that was the definitive problem with the Pixlings. And instead of doing anything to fix that or mitigate it or do anything about it, they sort of went in the opposite direction and made these dolls that are so much worse. And now I do want to say, like, I get that toy production is not this instantaneous thing, right? Like, it is entirely possible that Moose Toys already had the Pixling Supremes in production when they realized that they really needed to change the packaging. And they just like already had this going. And so it was like, okay, we'll fix it later. I'm not saying that's the case. It is equally possible that they were just like, nah, we're making enough money. It's fine. It doesn't matter. And they just like didn't care about the critique, but like they could have cared about the critique, but they just didn't implement that in time. Like, they didn't come up with any changes in time, and they went through with the Pixling Supremes. And my personal theory is that those did so unbelievably poorly that they just could not justify making any more Pixlings after that. I don't know if it was like a purely financial thing, or if they looked at it and instead of seeing that the problem was the packaging, they were just like, oh shit, people don't like the Pixlings anymore. For like the umpteenth time for this video, I don't know what's going on in Moose Toys. I don't know like any internal workings of the logic there, but it just seems to me like that was the last big Pixlings release. I don't know. I don't think other ones came out after that. If they did, it would have been like one other round very shortly after the Pixlings, and then there was nothing. And now there is, for the foreseeable future, and in my head for the entire future, nothing. So I personally blame the Pixling Supremes for the downfall of the Magic Mixies Pixlings, which I hate to say. Like, I love those little suckers so much, and it does piss me off so bad that something that feels so unavoidable ended up killing them. Because, like, listen, I don't mean to be an ass. I don't mean to be a know-it-all. I don't mean to, like, assume that I know better than everybody at Moose Toys. But also, who thought that was a good idea? Who was like, hey, even though we're getting critique, and we've been getting critique from the beginning of this series, we should totally just make the packaging even more ostentatious, and we should absolutely put none of the budget into the doll. Like, who thought about that? I don't know. It just seems like something that should have been easy to avoid. It seems like such a goofy misstep, but it was in fact a misstep that ended up happening. And yeah, I just feel like if the Pixling Supremes had not been that bad of a flop, maybe if they had been $40 instead of $60, still too much to pay for what you were getting, but maybe it wouldn't have been such a horrible like financial thing for them. Or maybe if they just put more effort into the doll itself, they would have like scraped by and people would have liked the doll enough for them to like get past that blunder. But it just was a terrible, terrible release. And I think that it just kind of ruined everything. Again, it could have been monetarily, it could have been like besmirching the Pixlings name. And now the Pixlings are no more. So that's my little pet theory that's been bothering me lately. So I just wanted to talk about it with you all. As I said before, though, I'm very curious to see if you have any other theories. Like, does what I'm saying make sense? Do you think that I'm missing something else that's huge, like I just should be paying attention to? I don't know. Please let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on my theory and any theories you have about the Pixlings. Are you also super sad that they're gone? Because I am. But on that bummer of an ending, why would I end it like that? I don't know. I just thought it was fascinating to take a look at this rather short-lived, but personally, in my eyes, a brand that like could have been absolutely incredible, and it just crumpled. Like, it was really interesting to take a look at what I personally think is what caused their downfall. So yeah, that's everything for me for today, guys. I hope this was entertaining for you, even if it was a little bit grim. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, your night, whatever it might be, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.